Hi there, welcome back. My name is Casey and I am continuing an iris reading. The first eye that I did for this person was the left eye. We're moving on to the right, and that left eye video will be iris reading or iridology lesson number 9, and this will be number 10, just for anybody who might be following along for educational purposes. I just finished up that video and I thought that I had covered everything that I had seen, but then once I shut the recording off, I realized that I did not speak to the nervous system and what I was seeing in terms of nerve rings. So there are nerve rings in both irises for this person. They're not, I would say they're more acute. They're not super deep. You can see, let's see here, if I can get the correct cursor. Okay, so you can see these circular rings, and just barely in this photograph. So if you would like to see them more clearly, they're a little bit more visible in the left iris. So, but this is interesting because I'm seeing nerve rings, a few nerve rings, which do indicate some level of nervous tension that has found its way into the body through the environment. It can be external or internal, and its effects on the overall system. So there can be some nervous sensitivity, but there isn't always. So it can be absolutely related to something that you're experiencing internally or externally that's not even registering consciously. So you can have nerve rings. They're also called stress rings, and they don't necessarily indicate that this person has a lot of anxiety, which it's sort of implied when you say nerve rings. You think, well, they must be nervous. So it's not always the case. Now, when you see the nerve rings along with other signs, like if you see something going on in the adrenal gland, if you see something going on in, any of the brain centers that are related to anxiety, even if you just see like a lot of inflammation in the brain itself, I've noticed that can indicate anxiety. So I just wanted to mention that in case you were watching the last video and now you're watching this video, and I just want to say that the nerve rings in that left iris are a little bit more visible. The quality of the two photographs are a little bit different. So this photograph isn't quite as clear, but one of the benefits of this photograph is that you can see, and we talked about this in the last video, you can really see the thickness of the lymphatic congestion. So that would be indicated by this yellow to gold to brown color that you're seeing in the iris. But you can really see in this photograph that these radii solaris, which are these lines that are coming out from the stomach and bowel area, how they're sort of like like if you were cutting a cake with frosting, and you're sort of splitting the layers of the trabecula or the iris fibers, and that's what the radii solaris are doing, and they're showing you how thick this lymphatic congestion is. Okay, so again, we're dealing with a lot of fairly heavy lymphatic congestion. And I want to go back to the nerve ring thing, because we did see some stuff come up related to the adrenals in the left eye as well. I think the ego pressure or anxiety zone had a radii solaris going through it. And one other thing that I didn't mention in that video is that the pupils in both eyes. They're the same, pretty similar in both eyes. They do seem slightly constricted. So when you have a constricted pupil, and this pupil in particular in the right eye has some other things going on with it, but they're both, in both eyes, they were fairly constricted, and that can indicate sensitivity or tension in the central nervous system. So the nerve rings that you see, the little circle lines that go, mostly in this eye, you can see them up at the top, but you'll notice those in if you've watched any of the other videos, or if you're researching or learning about iridology, you probably have heard of nerve rings or stress rings. So they're showing up slightly in this right eye, and they showed up a little bit more pronounced in the left eye. So nerve rings are more indicative of tension in the autonomic nervous system, whereas pupil size is related to the central nervous system. So with all of those things in mind, I'm looking at quite possibly this person may be experiencing some tension in the nervous system overall. Okay? And we are seeing, just as in the left iris, there was a pretty thick scurf ring or skin ring, and likewise we're seeing the same situation in the right eye. It does seem to be even deeper, and this could be the photograph. Over here in this area, you know, where the kidneys are, spine, and the throat, and this whole section right here seems to have a thicker or deeper skin ring than this area over here on this side, and even at the top of the iris. All right, so that said, let's get into the right eye and see what we see that might be similar or different from the left eye reading. Okay, so we talked about the lymphatic congestion. We talked about the skin and the health of the skin and how that relates to the thyroid in the last video. And I want to get right back into that in this video because I'm seeing a few interesting signs in this eye. And one of the things that caught my eye right away was this area right in here. And this is the parathyroid. And this looks like heavy lymphatic congestion, heavy or high level of inflammation in this area. So this whole little cloud of pretty distinct, thick, whitish to yellowish congestion is centered in the parathyroid, and the whole entire the vocal cords and the tonsils. So I noticed that on the other side too. I don't think that I mentioned the tonsils in the left iris, and I'm not sure if this person has had her tonsils removed or not, but there is congestion in that whole throat, the throat chakra, the tonsils, the vocal cords, the parathyroid, and the thyroid. So with iridology, if you've had your tonsils removed, it's just going to show you, your iris is going to show you the state of the tonsils prior to removal. When you have surgery that is, if you're under anesthesia, your nervous system isn't picking up the pain, so it's not registering those signs in the iris. So when you see surgeries in people's reflected in people's irises, a lot of times it's not going to show up. Now, if you see something like a limb that was broken, a lot of times that will show up because you weren't under anesthesia, generally speaking, when you've had traumas to the skeletal system. So I'm not sure if you still have your tonsils, but the whole entire throat area has a lot of congestion, and that would be one of the areas that I would be focusing on, would be the thyroid. So this whole entire section in here, and especially, like I said, actually, this specific little spot is very interesting, and that's related more to the parathyroid. So parathyroid is related to calcium utilization. A lot of times when people have weakness in the parathyroid area, they have challenges with connective tissue weakness. So you can have hernias, you can have sagging, you can have just general weakness in the skeletal system and the connective tissue. And that will show up in a variety of ways. So that's parathyroid. And then to me, this whole area is standing out. And that would be even getting into the lower jaw. So I believe, I did not mention it on the other side, but I remember seeing hints, because when you're looking at this section, no matter what eye you're on, you're going in from the throat to the lower jaw. So there could be something going on in there as well, but certainly there's a lot going on in the parathyroid, thyroid, vocal cords, tonsils, and the whole throat chakra. That whole energy center of communication, speaking, expression is being affected. Okay, so we talked about the lymphatic congestion, we talked about the skin ring, and like I said, we went into, you know, different approaches to healing the skin, and then especially addressing the thyroid in the last video. So I want to see if there's anything new that I'm seeing in the right iris that I did not see in the left. And this iris looks to me like there are even more challenges. So there were challenges in the digestive system on the left side. On the right side, it looks to be even more pronounced. So this area, let me get a different. So this whole area in here is indicating the stomach and the bowels. This whole section. And the stomach being closest to the pupil. And you can see that it looks like there's even a little bit of flattening in this area of the pupil. When you see flattening in the pupil, again, we're talking about the central nervous system. Like I'm seeing it kind of in here, and the health of the central nervous system. And you're always going to look to the areas that are reflective of that flattening. So what I'm seeing is that this flattening is going and affecting all of those areas. And there's also something curious about, I'm going to take these off so we can go through those more specifically. So a little bit of stress in the central nervous system related to, and this would be specifically the medulla, so the back of the head, the ear, the mastoid process, and the neck. So the neck is coming up on both sides of the body. Yeah, a lot of neck. And then we'll get into, there's a few brain zones in here that it's affecting also. Before we talk about that though, I want to show you just this whole entire section. This is the stomach. And then this would be the ascending colon and the transverse colon, just surrounding the stomach. And it looks like there's a lot going on in the stomach, and even into the chronic and degenerative levels. So that can be affecting, you know, it could even be indicating gastritis or inflammation of the stomach lining. Absolutely, when you see this discoloration and uneven edge around the pupil, you are looking at the high possibility of malabsorption or just challenges with absorbing the nutrients from your food. On an emotional level, it's related to how well you receive in life. So absolutely there's something going on, some inflammation in the stomach, and especially in this area over here that is right next to the ascending colon. So, and then you have this, just this dark, so that would be the chronic into the degenerative stage in the stomach, and that is looking like, if you follow that line, we're kind of getting into the appendix a bit, into, again, that's the peritoneum, which is the stomach lining. So this whole line right here is related to that. And then just to the left of it, we have the pancreas. And then to the left of that, we have the liver and the gallbladder. So nothing huge showing up in the liver, gallbladder, or the pancreas, but these are just areas that are directly connected to whatever's going on in this dark area of the stomach. And even more so, though, I want to address this flattened area and how it's connected to the neck, the back of the head, and even the ear. And that, again, this is on the right side. So let's take a look at these lines specifically. Now, where this lower line is actually, as you can see from the chart over here on the right, is the lung. So this flattening, I'm going to redraw it. This line is going into the lung area. The lungs could be weak. They could have a genetic predisposition to, experiencing challenges in that area. And it can also be related to the health of the stomach, because you can see from the radii solaris that are coming directly from the stomach area that this is a toxic dispersal, a dispersal of toxins. And radii solaris means rays, it's the sun's rays. So it's sort of like shining toxins from the sun of your eye throughout the rest of your body. And let's take a look at, so this is the neck area in here. Neck, more back of the head, so getting into even the ear, and then the medulla. The medulla as a brain center. So I'm going to highlight that one as a brain center. The medulla is super important. And if you have a radii solaris going through it, you could possibly have, and I'll just speak to some of the functions of the medulla. You could possibly have challenges with some of those functions, and that the medulla contains the respiratory, cardiac, and vasomotor centers. It has a lot to do with expiration, as in the breathing, expiration, circulation, heart activity, the oxidation of blood, lungs, and tissues. When the medulla is weak, the heart can tend to also show some weakness. And we did look at the heart on the right side and it looked good, so I wouldn't worry about that. But it does have a connection to the heart. It also has a connection to the nervous system, and especially respiration. So heart rate, respiration, breathing, swallowing, hiccuping, all of those sort of automatic responses that our body exhibits. Okay, so moving on, and it's directly coming from this area. So we're looking at the stomach, and we spoke to the stomach and bowels in the last video. Again, I'm going to recommend that one of the first things you address in your healing protocol on your journey is the stomach and bowels. And you're just going to be alkalizing. So you're going to be doing, as you're going to be progressing into fruits and vegetables, and then progressing into raw exclusively. And this is just for detox. This isn't for, you know, normal living. Dr. Morse mentions this quite often. He says, like, I'm not telling you guys how to eat. I'm telling you how to detoxify your body. So for detoxification, you're going to be eating as much alkaline and live foods as possible. When you get comfortable there, you're going to go on to fruits, and you're going to be eating as much fruit as possible. And you can even get into the mono fruit fasting and all of that. But in terms of herbs, stomach and bowel formula for sure, lymphatic formula for sure, and then we spoke in the last video about the gland, the endocrine system and all the glands and your options there. So in this iris, I might be jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but in this iris, in both eyes, the pituitary and the pineal showed up, and the pituitary more so. So in this area right here is the pituitary, and then the pineal is right next to it right here. So you could be taking endocrine balance tincture, or you could go straight for the pituitary tincture. You could cycle through them. So you could start with endocrine balance, then go to pituitary, and then go into thyroid. So as I mentioned, all of those formulas work harmoniously together. They have similar ingredients. They are a little bit specific to the specific glands that they are geared for, but like if you're taking pituitary formula, it's going to be working on all of your glands. If you're taking the endocrine balance formula, it's going to be working on all of your glands. Thyroid would be a little bit more specific to the thyroid, but again, it's going to be addressing the health of the entire endocrine system. Okay, so the things in between, what did we miss? So we have this radii solaris right here is genetic intelligence, also known as inherent mental or anxiety. This area came up in the left iris as well and is opposite the kidney and adrenal. So when you see lines or lacuna in both of these areas, you're looking at the high possibility that someone does experience some anxiety related to the adrenal gland and the inherent mental brain zone. So the fact, you know, when something comes up in both eyes, I pay a little more attention to it. And this is the case here with this inherent mental zone. And the other one that's showing up is the vitality center. And the vitality center somewhat showed up in the left eye. There was a little radii solaris, but it didn't extend all the way up into the brain center. So again, vitality center. The vitality center is actually related to your crown chakra. It's the most highly charged brain zone, and it's the highest frequency chakra in the body. So it's related to your connection to source, to life force energy, to chi, and physically speaking, it is connected to how much energy you have available to you to complete your daily tasks, how much joy and zest for life that you're able to express depending on how much energy you have and what you have set in front of you, whether that's in alignment with your soul purpose or not. So that's the vitality zone. It is showing up a bit in this iris. Actually, it's pretty prominent. It can also just mean that you're tired. So, all right, and then we talked about the pituitary gland here, and that brain zone that's going straight through the pituitary gland actually did come up in the other eye as well, and that is the acquired mental speech, listening, learning, speaking zone. And I talked about this in the last video. So, like I mentioned, a lot of the stuff that I cover, I have written in more detail on my website. So I usually try to put a link in the description box to that if you want to go deeper into it. So that's coming up again. And then, yeah, pineal is coming up again. I really feel like it's more the pituitary than the pineal, and you can address the pituitary and it will address the other glands. And this little tiny spot right here is the nose. Specifically, this whole zone is the nose, and the eye is right here. So pretty minor, but that is coming up. And then we're back around to the throat, thyroid, really parathyroid standing out to me a lot. Even this little dark area in here can be considered parathyroid. So I would say that parathyroid, the issues, the thyroid for sure, and even more so in both eyes, the parathyroid. So you're looking at, like I said, the any kind of issues with calcium utilization. And there we go. Okay, this line right here is the bladder. Could be challenges in the bladder area, and we're getting close. When we're in the bladder, we're getting close to the kidney. So I would say this whole section right here would be the kidney, and then the adrenal would be closer to the top. And the adrenal is, as in the left eye, even more pronounced to me than the kidney itself. Although the kidney does look to have a lot of congestion and inflammation, and because you have so much lymphatic congestion overall, certainly there's going to be lymphatic congestion in the kidney and the adrenal area. This would be pretty close to tiny foot. I'm wondering if it is connected at all to the hip. So there could be something in the hip area. I mean, 6 o'clock is tiny foot, and then just to the left of that is the hip. And there's a little bit more definition in this radii solaris in the hip area. Okay, so the pancreas is, this whole area in here is the pancreas, but this radii solaris is going right into it. So I'm wondering if there isn't something going on with the pancreas. With all of the stuff going on in the digestive system, I wouldn't be surprised. So this would be the pancreas, this whole area in here. And herbs that are and practices. So as soon as you start to alkalize and get into the fruits and vegetables, I mean, I really recommend more the fruits and then the leafy greens. Vegetables, when you're doing raw food, actually can be a little bit difficult to digest. Leafy greens are easier to digest, and you can do juices and green drinks and things like that. So when you get into healing the entire body, this is going to address the pancreas. The pancreas secretes alkalizing enzymes as your food is moving throughout your digestive system. So when you have this level of acidity in the digestive system, a lot of times you're going to see stuff going on in the pancreas. So that's that. And then the liver, gallbladders over here. Again, a lot of lymphatic congestion, but nothing in terms of genetic past or inherent weakness in the liver, gallbladder. And it's interesting because of this photograph, it's just a little bit of a different definition. You can kind of see like these little patches of thick, heavy lymphatic stagnation in these little areas right in here. Okay, so we are working on the endocrine system. We're looking at the pituitary as the master gland, and we're looking at the parathyroid primarily as well as the thyroid. Everything involved with the throat center, the vocal cords, the tonsils, which either have a lot of congestion now or they had a lot of congestion and were removed. I can't be sure. I would love to find out, so let me know. And then really alkalizing your stomach and bowels. You can be using the stomach and bowel formula. You can be taking marshmallow root, slippery elm, any kind of green drinks are going to be super alkalizing and soothing to the stomach and digestive system. And you're going to be focusing on getting your kidneys filtering, because although I'm not seeing a lot of influence genetically in the kidney and adrenal area, which is excellent, there's so much lymphatic congestion that I don't think that the kidneys could be filtering at optimal level if there was this much lymphatic congestion. Okay, I think that's it. I don't want to forget anything. Yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, if anybody who's watching has any questions, feel free to send me an email or comment, or yeah. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Okay, bye.